So this is another item that I wanted to kind of dwell on a little bit. Let me just make my face a little smaller here. So again, we're going through the cycle of kind of like when as you raise your money and then you're trying to build the product. So you step one is ideation phase. This is when you're going through a lot of ideation and you're trying to figure out what the product is that you want to build. The second step is actually building that product. The next step is going through beta, and then you're going through execution. So what I've noticed is a lot of companies, what they'll do is they'll raise money and go straight from one to step four, and they're completely missing step two and three. And usually step one is the most important and most critical in terms of how you're building your company. Ideation phase, you're keeping this team small. And it's important because there's only certain types of people that can go through this ideation phase, where you're continuously thinking about the product, but the product and the idea is changing. So if you think about a lot of times us as founders, we have this thesis that we want to go after. And then we have the equation, which is the product to solve towards the thesis. That equation can change. And so it's super important to have a team that can appreciate that you're going to go through a lot of change. A lot of times people join a company and they don't want that change. They just want to know what they're building, what they're selling every day. And they don't want to go through a lot of change. So that's why it's important to have that intimate team. Usually that team is the two founders and maybe two or three other people, and so on. And then once you identify that ideation phase, you're going into building phase, which is phase two. And these are, again, earlier days. The team's small, but again, you're building, but you could be throwing things out. So again, it's really important to have that intimate team. And this is kind of where you grow to 2-3 engineers. So the go-to-market team isn't growing here. The go-to-market team is the founding team and the founders. And then you're hiring 2-3 engineers and maybe a product person that's helping you kind of ideate and build the things that you ideated in phase one. Again, lots of changes going to be happening here. So it's really important that you keep this team super small. But once you've figured out that you have that product market fit in phase two, that's when the fun begins and you go into beta phase, into phase three. And this is where you could start maybe doubling down a little bit on engineering, on sales and marketing, because you've now figured out the product market fit and you can press the gas a little bit on hiring. So if you think about phase one and phase two, you just raise your seed or your pre-seed, you're keeping a team small, you're keeping your burn really small, you're figuring out what you're building, you're figuring out what you're trying to do, you're iterating against the feedback from the market, you're iterating against the feedback from your team, you're going through a lot of ideation and building. And that's where phase one and two come together to get you to phase three. Phase three is now you're really doubling down on everything that you learned in phase one and phase two. And this is where you're building out the team. Now your burn's getting a little higher, but rightfully so, because you've now figured out product market fit. And guess what? Now you got beta out, you can move to execution phase, which is where you start pushing the envelope and you start hiring, getting sales going. And hopefully you're getting towards, if you did your pre-seed, towards your seed. And if you did your seed, you're getting now to your series A. And that's where the execution phase comes in.